I will call to order the regular meeting of the Camarillo City Council for today, Wednesday, April 27th, 2022.
And I'll call to order the meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District Board.
I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Craven,
Here.
Councilmember Kildee,
Here.
Councilmember Tremblay, Vice Mayor Santangelo,
Here.
and Mayor Mulchay.
Present. The purpose for our meeting at 4:30 is we have some closed session items. With that, I will ask our city attorney to please announce the purposes for our recess and a closed session.
Yes, we have two closed sessions this afternoon. The first one is a conference with labor negotiators. The authority is Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representatives are listed in the agenda. The unrepresented employees are the city employees. The second closed session item is a conference with legal counsel. That's anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. Number of potential cases is 1.
All right, with that, do we have any public comment? Nope, and I see no one out there in the audience. So at this time, we'll recess into closed session. Be back at 5.
All right, I'd like to call the Camarillo Board of Library Trustees regular business to order, please, for Wednesday, April 27th, and let the record reflect that all the trustees are present. And the flag salute, I'm going to ask Mrs. Craven, would you so kindly lead us?
Certainly, please rise. Place your hand over your heart and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any approval of the agenda as submitted? Are we okay with that? Do we need a receive and file or anything like that, or can we move on from that? Okay, we're going to move on to public comments with the library. I don't see any public comments, so let's go down to consent. It's item A and B on consent.
Move the approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. No discussion. Oil communications, we don't have any reports or anything. Do anybody, any of the trustees have anything to say at this particular point? No? Okay. So with that, there is no closed session, so we will adjourn.
Call this meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District Board of Directors to order and ask the record to reflect that all board members are present. Are there any public comments? I don't have any cards. Seeing no one come forward, we will move on to the consent calendar.
I'll move the approval of consent.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. Motion vote passes unanimously. Any oral communications for this CAMSAN? No? Okay. Then I'll ask the attorney, but I don't believe there was a closed session report.
Yeah, there's no report out of closed session.
Okay, we're adjourned.
And I will reconvene the meeting of the Camarillo City Council. Let the record reflect that all council members are still present. Approval of the agenda, formerly known as amendments to the agenda. Do we have any?
No.
I have one. I'm going to move oral communications, which is an item at the end of our 5 o'clock session. I'm going to push that to the end of our 7 o'clock session after our public hearing items. And aside from that, we will move on to consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. That passes unanimously. That takes us down. We have no discussion items. We had already moved oral communications, and so we are effectively done with our 5 o'clock session. Record time. So at
Back
this
to
time,
closed session?
this time we're going to recess back into closed session, and we will be back for our 7 o'clock session and our public hearings and public comments. We will reconvene the meeting of the Camarillo City Council. We have nothing to report out of closed session. We're going to move on to public comments. So I have a few comment cards here. I will read these, I'll read off your name, and then I'll let the person who's on deck, let them know they're coming up. So this is general public comment, anything that is not on the agenda. For those calling up, you'll stand at the podium. Please speak into the microphone so we can clearly hear you, both us up here at the dais and everyone in TV land. You'll be given 3 minutes. Once you start speaking, that clock will count down. At 1 minute, you'll hear a little buzz and the light will turn yellow. Don't freak out. You just continue on through until you run out of time and that light turns red, at which point I'm going to ask you to conclude your comments so we can keep everyone to 3 minutes and keep it fair. All right, if I mispronounce your name, please feel free to correct me. Greg, is it Savory? Sayer, you are up, and David Canepa, you're going to be on deck.
Hello, hello. You can hear me?
I hear you loud and clear.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here this evening, first one up. A little nervous, by the way, actually. I'm very concerned about the intent that I've heard, that is to stop the Camarillo Springs what do you call the
General Plan Amendment.
General Plan Amendment, yeah, to rescind it, okay? I'm a golfer. My name's Greg Sayer. I'm a golfer. I live out at the golf course on the 7th hole, and I watch people golf all day long. I'm actually the tournament director for the senior men's club out there, and we have a great time every Monday playing golf. After 5 years of working on this committee to try to find a compromise to build a new golf course and allow new houses to be constructed, and many, many hours, I just think that we deserve the right to be heard and to have this thing proceed through the process to the end, get to the end of the environmental impact study and have the city vote on it like it was originally intended. It seemed like after 5 years we ought to just not short circuit and just stop everything in its tracks, but we ought to let it go to the end and have a fair vote and a fair hearing. The golf course is owned by a guy who said he will close the course if this thing is rescinded, or if the plan stops. If it's turned down, he'll close the course permanently, and he'll close it immediately. So, based on that, we really do need to understand how much that will hurt our community. It'll hurt the golfers. It'll hurt the homeowners. It'll hurt the people that are living in the Camarillo Springs area. It'll hurt a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and I just can't think of any good thing that can come if we close the course down and it stays closed. I just can't see how that would benefit the city or the residents of Camarillo Springs. So I would ask this city council members to vote against the rescission vote if it comes to that, and allow the process to continue to completion to a fair vote. Okay? That's it.
Thank you very much. David Canepa, if I mispronounce it, please correct me. Jeff Walker, you're going to be on deck.
Mayor, City Council, thank you guys for your time. I am Dave Canepa. I'm a resident of Camarillo Springs, and I live on the 7th fairway with my wife, Janice. We are definitely want this project approved, this development plan. We think it's the best thing for the county and the city of Camarillo. The course is used by schools, clubs, families, and couples women's groups, men's groups, and people from all over the county of Ventura. We believe shutting it down will definitely be a detriment to our city and county. It's a nice recreational place for the county residents to get outside and a good activities. The improved course and restaurant would be even a bigger draw for the city of Camarillo. I have also heard people or talked to people in the opposition group about their opinion and why they're against it. Most of them seem to be misinformed. They believe the city will not allow the current owner to shut down the golf course or fence off the property. They believe that the city won't allow that to happen and force him to keep the course open. Or their second thought is the city will take over the golf course. Please let the public know what the city will do with the project if you withdraw from letting this move forward. They need to know what's going to happen and what the property is going to be like. Fencing the course will shut off any wildlife corridor, and also, like us that live on the golf course, it'll ruin our view because the fence will be within 20 feet or 30 feet from the front of our houses. The flood plan is another thing that I've heard about, and doing nothing will not improve our situation. Anything that New West would like to do would be an improvement to what we're currently at, our current houses and any future homes. Also, I want to let you know that they're doing a fantastic job taking care of the golf course. We moved in 2019. You got shut it down for COVID. It turned into a patch of weeds. They've improved it, and it's the nicest it's ever been. I would like to meet with any of the council members or all of you to understand your opposition views, to see what we can do to help move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeff Walker, you are up, and Andrew Cromer, you are on deck.
Thank you, Mayor Moshe. Camarillo is such a great place to own a business, and I couldn't be happier to have a restaurant here in town. You get so many residents that are so loyal to the local businesses here. We've got a really tight-knit business community. A lot of business owners go and make this community a better place. We have a real supportive city. My business saw that during the pandemic. The help we got from the city is one of the reasons why we could be at the job fair tomorrow. Another thing the city is doing to help the business community be supportive. Can't wait to be back here in 12 hours in Constitution Park to be a part of that. The pulling the rug underneath this developer doing the EIR process, I think is hostile to business. And I don't think that's what Camarillo is about. Let this process go to the end. Vote on it in, but let them go through the EIR process that they invested so much in. And there is some potential here for some new businesses to come into the community and make an impact. So I was just here just to urge you to let the EIR process go to the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew Cromer, you are up, and Richard Wagner, you're on deck.
Good evening.
Could you pull the microphone down? Thank you.
How's that? Is that
Perfect.
a little better? Okay. Yeah, you'll have to forgive me. I was putting on my thoughts, and I got ready to print it up, and my printer went bad on me, so I'm going to do something I normally really don't like to do. And I'll just hope that my screensaver holds up long enough so I can read this. My name's Andrew Cromer, and I'm a resident of Camarillo Springs. And I'd like to talk tonight a little bit about the possible rescission of the general plan amendment request. Councilman Tremblay, you're in the process of trying to get our city council to vote to reconsider going forward with Camarillo Springs Senior Citizen Housing Project. That would include also, besides the housing project, a beautiful newly designed golf course, a new restaurant, new hiking trails, dog park. Right now, there's a 50-year-old rundown facility on site. Okay, so my question is, what's Plan B? What's Plan B? What's Plan B when you lose your leverage you currently have over the owner to keep this golf course open? And he closes and fences the lot. What's Plan B when we lose another recreational facility, and we're already under our ratio right now? What's Plan B for our current senior housing shortage? Okay, what happens, what's Plan B when after the abandoned buildings are sitting there for a while, they're vandalized, covered with graffiti, maybe they just accidentally burst into flames? Well, I better hurry up. What's Plan B when the trash and the vegetation start to create a giant dumping ground? We have a fire season coming up. Boy, I'm sure your code enforcement division's really going to love this. They'll be going out there constantly. What happens when the encampments start popping up like they do down at the Ventura River? What's Plan B? That's my question. Okay, this new senior housing project that's currently in the design refinement phase is being put together by really talented people working along with your staff. And they're finding out, as clearly was pointed out at the last meeting, that there are some deficiencies, and they're working on trying to resolve those. It's going to be state-of-the-art, seismic, flood, energy, water, ADA standards, and it would provide a new, beautiful development. So in closing, I'm going to say to you, please allow this process to continue.
Thank you very much. Richard Wagner, you are up. That is the last comment card I have for general public comments. I have two non-verbal cards I'll pass around to my colleagues here.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Rich Wagner, a longtime resident of Camarillo. I'm a professional golf course agronomist, been in the business for over 50 years, built golf courses, managed golf courses, and reconstructed golf courses. I'm in support of the plan to revitalize Camarillo Springs because the plan makes Camarillo Springs the most innovative and exciting golf courses in Southern California, possibly all of California, instead of a dilapidated course that it is today. Most importantly, it would save golf and allow it to thrive at Camarillo Springs. I absolutely could not believe my ears when I heard Councilmember Tremblay 2 weeks ago cite unfinished and incomplete third-party environmental reports as the reason to stop the process. This developer has worked in good faith with the city and with the community, and with the city's consultants. Why on earth would this process be stopped now? I'd like to see the process continue, the environmental work be completed, and then project scheduled for a public hearing. It's the right thing to do. After 5 years of work, why stop it now? I came here tonight to respectfully request that the city allow the process to continue, and ask that you consider that request seriously. There's a lot to lose here. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. That was the last comment card I had. This time, does anyone else want to make a public comment? I'm not seeing anyone rush up.
Mr. Mayor, just in brief response, I will have a statement to make regarding the Camarillo Springs Nui matter under council comments.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, the only other comment cards I have are on item R, so seeing no one else come up, we will move on from public comments, and we will go right into our public hearings, starting with item R, the 2022-23 Action Plan for Community Development Block Grant Program.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Erin Lay. I work with Veronica Tam & Associates consulting firm, and I've been working with your staff on the item that's before you. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires that the cities that receive CDBG funding, such as this entitlement city, complete an action plan every year. This is the item that's before you. In order to receive CDBG funds, HUD requires the submission of a number of different documents, including a 5-year strategic plan called the Consolidated Plan, an annual action plan each year, and at the end of the year, a Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, also called the CAPER. The city's 5-year Consolidated Plan is in effect until June 30th, 2024, and that Consolidated Plan set the priorities for each year during that 5-year period. The item before you tonight is a public hearing about the 2022-2023 Annual Action Plan. Because the allocations for 2022-2023 have not yet been announced, HUD has directed entitlement jurisdictions like Camarillo to develop their action plans using an estimate based on the 2021-2022 entitlement amount. HUD also gave direction that each jurisdiction's plan should have a contingency plan contained in it, which simply states how the funding will be adjusted up or down if the actual allocations are greater or less than the estimate. The City of Camarillo's contingency plan is simply to adjust the funding for each planned activity up or down equally based on the actual allocation when it's announced. All activities funded with CDBG funds must benefit low and moderate income individuals. And one of the key pieces of a CDBG program is the inclusion of local nonprofits in the program and the decision-making for the con plan and the action plan. The city reached out and notified local nonprofits about the opportunity to apply for 2022-2023 CDBG funds, and we held 2 public meetings in December to explain the process. A public hearing was held before this body on March 23rd with the funding recommendations, and as required, a 30-day public comment period was opened and closes today. The exact funding for each activity proposed is in your agenda packet, but includes, among other things, $51,460 for 4 nonprofits for a variety of services for the community, and $75,000 for Habitat for Humanity's home repair program. The recommended action before you today is to adopt a resolution approving the 2022-2023 CDBG Annual Action Plan for submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Kevin?
I don't know who to direct this question to, but my understanding, I believe that HUD has not developed either the budget or they have not appropriated the funds. Is there any kind of timeline that anybody knows on that?
HUD has 60 days after the federal allocations in order to announce. That would put it somewhere between May 5th and May 10th.
Okay, so
That's
it's
what the expectation
pretty
is.
close around the corner then. Is that safe to say? Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? No? All right, this is a public hearing, so I am going to open, thank you very much, by the way. I'm going to open the public hearing. I have 2 comment cards. The first one is Gregory Larkin, and Maurice Hill, you are on deck.
Good evening. I'm Father Greg Larkin, the pastor at St. Columba's Episcopal Church here in Camarillo. And we come before you, one, to thank you for your work with us in creating a new project that we call St. Columba's Pantry, and to speak about the work of the St. Columba's Pantry and this work that you helped us to develop with the grant last year is Maurice Hill. So with your permission, we'll let him come up and share about the work of the pantry.
Sure thing. We'll reset the clock for you. Thank you, Father.
Thank you for
Mr. Hill.
resetting. Mayor Molche and honorable council members, good evening. On behalf of St. Columba's Church, we want to take this opportunity to thank you for the special CDBG grant of $25,000 that we received in 2020 for providing grocery items and personal protective equipment, PPE, to Camarillo residents impacted by the COVID-19 public health crisis. We're in the final quarter of this grant, and we distribute food 2 to 3 times a month and we have provided food and PPE to over 50 Camarillo households since we started back in 2021. With respect to the action plan that we're talking about tonight, we request that you approve St. Columba's current grant proposal to provide food to low to moderate income, elderly, homeless, and disabled Camarillo residents. Separately, we provided the city with written recommendations on the draft action plan. We are enthusiastic about continuing to assist people in need for food in our community. I want you to know that we provide clients with fresh veggies and fruit at all of our distributions. I pick up the produce from a produce stand the same afternoon that we distribute to our clients. And in addition, we provide canned and packaged food items and sometimes fresh meat. I want to make a few other points here. First of all, the funds that we hope to receive will all go to the purchase of groceries and PPE to be given to our clients. I run the program. I'm a volunteer. I also have 9 other people who are working on the program with me that are volunteers. We don't get paid. We're happy to use all of these funds to solely provide food for those in need. And as you are all aware, there's a lot of need in our community. We are living in a time of high inflation for goods and services. Food prices are up, housing costs are up, medical costs are up, and so on. All of this must be borne by the low to moderate income families in our midst in Camarillo every day, by the homeless, by the disabled. This CDBG grant is one excellent way to help solve this problem. We commend the City Council for supporting the program, and we look forward to providing groceries to residents in need for our community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Does anyone else wish to speak? Yeah. Just announce your name for the record.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor. My name is Jason Meek. I'm the Executive Director for the Turning Point Foundation. And I just want to briefly speak to last year's support in terms of what we've done. Now, Turning Point Foundation is a behavioral health program embedded throughout the county, but specifically, what your investment in us and our community did last year, all of the members from Camarillo that we brought into our crisis shelter received behavioral health services. They received connection with primary care doctor. They then went into permanent supportive housing, and now they're ongoing their own journey of recovery and on an individual basis. Now, each one of these individuals, by the way, we were 100% successful on our targeted rate for our Camarillo folks. But each one of these individuals have been, not only have a safe and stable environment, but they do have a doctor they can call their own. They do have therapists at the ready. They do have a place that is safe and stable and to mitigate any housing insecurity. And they also have access to our other programs, 76% of which are already engaging in terms of employment training or education. So some are at the junior college level, others are in work programs and are ready to attempt to attain employment. Now, as studies indicate that is one of the #1 tools of self-worth and empowerment. And what we're able to do is provide them employment opportunities that have the support and oversight of clinicians in a way that is dignified, meaningful, and frees them of all the stigma. So they can have meaningful, ongoing employment, self-empowerment, a place that they can call their own. And that is because of your trust in us as service providers. So we thank you for that. We hope to have continued support. However, it's been very successful as of yet, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions, but more than anything, I just wanted to extend a little bit of context as to what the support has done and what we would love to continue in the future. So I'd be more than happy to field any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public speakers before I close public hearing? Going once, twice? All right. We will close the public hearing, and I will look to my colleagues.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I would move to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing submittal of the fiscal year 22-23 action plan for Community Development Block Grant Program to Department of Housing and Urban Development.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That'll take us to item S, municipal stormwater, the NPDES management permit.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council members. This item is a public hearing to authorize the Ventura County Watershed Protection District to continue to collect a $5 assessment per benefit assessment unit from Camarillo parcels next fiscal year. The assessment goes towards covering some of the cost to comply with the city's NPDES stormwater permit. The city is a co-permittee of the NPDES permit, along with the other 9 cities in the county and the watershed district, all under a stormwater permit implementation agreement to achieve permit compliance. Since its inception in 1994, the city's stormwater program has been partially funded by this benefit assessment collected by the district via the property tax roll. The implementation agreement provides that the city will annually request the amount of the assessment to be included for city purposes in the benefit assessment program, and that the city will conduct this public hearing prior to making such a request. A benefit assessment unit, or BAU, is equal to a single detached housing unit, and the BAUs in Camarillo for next fiscal year will be approximately 31,416 units, which is nearly identical to last fiscal year. The $5 assessment per BAU is expected to generate $157,080 for Camarillo next fiscal year. This amount will partially offset the city's $1.6 million estimated stormwater program costs. The stormwater program costs and revenue from this assessment will be reflected in the city's budget for next fiscal year. That concludes my report, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Mr. Gildy?
Yeah, Dave, so by law, this is the maximum amount that we can assess?
That's correct. Back when this was originally established, prior to Prop 218, it would take a Prop 218 action to adjust that any more than the set $5. So that's been that way for every year since then.
And this basically comes before us every year, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the public hearing is required to continue this assessment.
And the amount of money that it actually costs us to provide this service, again, was it 1.6 million? What did you say?
Correct. Our estimate for looking forward in the next fiscal year's budget, about 1.6 million to administer our and comply with our stormwater NPDES permit program.
Okay. Thank you for that report.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Dave. I will open up the public hearing. And I don't have any comment cards. Does anyone here wish to speak on this item? Not seeing anyone rush up, so we will close the public hearing. Discussion and/or guidance by my colleagues.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the council adopt a resolution authorizing a $5 assessment per BAU for inclusion into the benefit assessment program of the Ventura County Watershed Protection District.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, that takes us to our last item. It was a holdover from our 5 o'clock agenda, and that is oral reports. Where am I? And oral communications, do I have anything from our city attorney? Our city manager, I don't think I have any comments. So I will go to our colleagues. Kevin, can I start with you?
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Bear with me just a moment here. Meetings attended on April 21st, had a VRSD meeting. I did attend, along with others, the Viva La Comida on Monday. I believe had a great time there. It's always good to see a lot of people that you don't often get a chance to see as much as you'd like. So it was a really good event. Encourage everybody next year if you can to go, because it's a really, really neat Camarillo event. Also, it's been brought to my attention too, that, and maybe staff can, Mr. Ramirez, the population signs in Camarillo are not as accurate, not terribly accurate, if you will, and I know there's a good reason for it, but the question is, will they be updated in a reasonable amount of time to reflect what the population of Camarillo is? And I know there's probably some reasons as to why they haven't been updated yet, so maybe if you don't mind to shed a little light on that.
Yes, we're currently in process working with Caltrans on that, specifically relating to the census, the most recent census, and those numbers will be updated probably within the next month or so.
Thank you. And then, and maybe some other council members, maybe they wouldn't, but at some point, I'm not asking for it tonight, but maybe an update on how the fire with the hotel and how that's progressing, and perhaps a little FYI at some point when it's appropriate. So those are all I have right now.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hop around, so I'm going to go my outside and work my way in. So, yeah, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I'll go to you, Mr. Tremblay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For meetings attended, May 14, Library Ad Hoc Committee. On May 22, the Board of Directors for Metrolink. Let me just indicate a couple of things from that Metrolink board meeting on May 22. First of all, to let council know that the Metrolink board, we adopted a memorandum of understanding between Metrolink and the California High-Speed Rail Authority for cooperation and coordination for the Burbank to Los Angeles section of the high-speed rail system. That's still very much in planning, et cetera. It involves sharing of a corridor and a track, et cetera. So that was one item. The second item is that the Board of Directors approved a 3-year contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department for law enforcement services, and those are multi-jurisdictional, spread across 5 counties in Southern California, including rights-of-way and railroad properties, et cetera. So very substantial contract. It's in excess of $53 million. So they have a lot of ground to cover. You'll recall that with regard to the LA Metro system, there is currently a conflict between the Los Angeles County Sheriff and the board and the Metro Board relative to law enforcement services for that system. But for the Metrolink system, Metrolink is proceeding with the LA County Sheriff's Department, and that was based on a procurement process. So. Finally, I have a statement to make regarding General Plan Amendment Referral 2017-2 Camarillo Springs Newey. At the April 13, 2022 City Council meeting, the Council received an update concerning project flood protection issues in connection with General Plan Amendment Referral 2017-2 Camarillo Springs Newey. After receiving the update at that meeting, I stated my intention to request the City Manager to schedule an agenda item for consideration of rescission of this General Plan Amendment referral. On April 19, 2022, I submitted a letter to the City Manager making this request. On April 21, 2022, Newey's legal counsel, Susan Ori, submitted a letter to the City which refers to the submission of a revised master drainage plan by Newey's consultant to the City on the same date, i.e. April 21, 2022. My understanding from City staff is that Newey's consultant did submit a revised master drainage plan to the City on April 21, 2022. In light of this submission, I provided a letter dated April 25, 2022 to the City Manager, which withdraws my April 19, 2022 request for consideration or rescission of the General Plan Amendment referral at this time, to provide an opportunity for the City to evaluate the April 21st submission. And that concludes my statement.
Thank you very much. Ms. Santangelo?
Thank you. For meetings attended, April 14th, the Airport Authority, April 20th, Executive Committee of CPA, and on April 14th, I also attended the West Ventura County Business Alliance Business and Economic Outlook. The keynote speaker was our Director of Airports, Keith Freitas, and that's all I have.
All right. I will go next. I'm going to let Mrs. Craven go last so we can all.
Always.
Always. And that way we can get our fireside chat and history lesson from Professor Craven. Meetings attended. April 14th, I attended the West Ventura County Business Alliance Economic Outlook, as the Vice Mayor had mentioned. That was presented by the county's Department of Airports Director Keith Freitas. Just a quick little rundown of what he kind of spoke about. He talked about the airports, both Camarillo and Oxnard. Helped dispel the rumors that Amazon was coming to Camarillo. But spoke about something a little bit new, something that we haven't really discussed in the past. We have not discussed, and that the airport has not really discussed, but that's EV tolls, or what are electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, or aircraft. So there's about 200 companies throughout the United States that are currently working on this kind of technology, and imagine it like a really big version of a drone, like what you might see now, people flying drones, but one that you can actually get into and will vertically take off and take you to whatever locale you need. They don't have a very long range because the batteries, one, are heavy, and they don't have enough density to carry a lot of load very far distances. So they're looking at applications like air taxis, primarily air taxis, and or one might think, delivery of packages and stuff. So, so he spoke about that, and he said that was if he was kind of a betting man, and he was thinking that we would see something like that in 5 to 7 years. I think it was his timeline. 60 Minutes recently covered it, so go to 60 Minutes' website and you can see a really good report on that. Anderson Cooper does some interviews. He also mentioned in regards to Oxnard that the Oxnard Airport they still have their license to allow commercial airline service, that they're not looking to get rid of that, and that they are actively pursuing commercial airline service at Oxnard. So I just wanted to mention that. So that's what he mentioned. That's pretty much it. There's also two large developments, or I should say 2 large parcels of land, a few acres in size, on Oxnard Airport, and they're right now seeking development. What might come of that, I'm not sure. But that is all I have for that meeting. April 14th, I also attended a library ad hoc committee meeting. April 14th, and that was a busy day. That evening, I attended Airport Authority with the Vice Mayor, where most of you will be familiar with the hangar lease agreement that has been in process for God knows how long, 10, 20 years or something,
Long time.
A long time. So that has officially come to an end, and a proposed lease was placed in front of us. It was wholly endorsed by the Camarillo Oxnard Airport Hangar Association. So with that, it made the decision rather easy. Both parties agreed on some language. They brought it to the authority, and the authority passed it unanimously. April 21st, I attended the Economic Development Collaborative Board meeting. April 25th, last Monday, I attended Viva La Comida, which was great. Noontime Rotary in Camarillo puts that on, benefits Boys and Girls Club. A lot of familiar faces, and it was really good to see people gather again in public and not have to look at people via Zoom or a computer. So it was really great to see the community all start coming together again, and obviously for a very, very good cause. April 26th, is that yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. I don't know my day straight. I attended a Board of Supervisors meeting in Ventura. They presented us with the city with Earth Day Award recognition. Our supervisor, Kelly Long, effectively nominated us, or awarded us. They do one per district for Earth Day for our desalter project, and so we were honored and kind of highlighted for that. And that was great. And then that same day, I was trying to deliver. I jumped on a call for the Metropolitan Water District Board. They had a special meeting in regards to declaration of a water shortage emergency. They were running more than an hour late, so unfortunately I ran into conflicts. I wasn't able to make the comments, but I've talked to staff. We submitted our comments via letter. So they have received those, as has Callegas. Last thing, and this is probably a question to staff, or just a pet peeve of mine a little bit. Obviously, we're getting into political season, and with that, comes the nuisance of signs. I'm seeing signs pop up on freeway on-ramps and off-ramps, almost every single one in Camarillo. And then today on Daily Drive, someone decided to put 2 political signs right in front of our welcome to our Camarillo sign. Obviously, that's public property. It's Camarillo's property. Those should be removed. But I am seeing a lot more signs right along freeway on-ramp and off-ramps, which are probably Caltrans in the state. And I'm not sure how quick they are in, taking care of those. So if we can kind of get word to them, because if those signs stay up, then other people think they get wise and they think they can, put signs up and just litter all of our on-ramps and off-ramps with signs. So, and that was all I had. So I'm going to turn it over to Professor Craven.
I don't think I need that title. The meetings I attended, I only attended one meeting. It was an AWA meeting by Zoom, and I stood in for the mayor on the 19th. It was a report by a person who works for Callegas Municipal Water District on their study of alternative water supplies for the future. And one reason it's, she stated something about the amount of water, if something happens and we can't get water from the north, and this is either because of a drought or like in the 1994 earthquake, they thought that the tunnel through the Santa Susana Pass had been destroyed. So they shut off the water, and at that time they told us that Lake Bard had a 2-month supply of water. Here's how much we've grown. Now it has a 5.5-week supply of water. So that's come down by, 3.5 weeks in those years. But at any rate, they're looking for other sources of water. And she went through a whole list of them. But the one that is of interest, I think, to us and really caught my ear was when she said that Camarillo had indicated an interest, and she hasn't heard from them again, to do some kind of a cooperative agreement for a desalter in the Springville area. And all I could think of is we don't have another $65 million. But then she said, well, Callegas doesn't build any of this stuff, so I would just ask staff to get a hold of them at Callegas, and whatever you're going to do, if it's going to cost $65 million, bring it in after December 7th when I'm gone. I'm not prepared for another thing like that. I took my grandson Trevor to the World War II exhibit at the Reagan Library on Monday, a week ago Monday. And that is, I want to give a shout out. It is an excellent exhibit. If you can or have time, it's just started early April, so it's going to be there for a while. And if you go, keep your eye out, because there is a Camarillo connection, a great big 2-part Camarillo connection that's easily missed because it's tucked over in a corner. And finally, I would like to ask well, not finally, because the history lesson is the final thing, but I would like to ask to close in the memory of David Kraus. David was a member of a Camarillo Citizen Patrol for a number of years, and he passed away in Arizona recently. And so I try to keep an eye out for people who've volunteered a lot of hours to the city, and I think that he's worthy of our closing in his memory. And now, it's kind of related. The history lesson tonight is on police stations in Camarillo. So in 1958, President Dwight Eisenhower established Law Day, May 1st, as a day of national dedication to the principles of government under law. With that in mind, it's a good time to talk about Camarillo's police stations. So back in the day, there was an elected constable and one resident deputy sheriff. Al Rouse, who happened to be the husband of later council member Tweety Rouse, was the resident deputy from 1953 to 60. John Murphy was the last resident deputy. And of course, the city incorporated in 1964, so we contracted with the sheriff's department at that time to provide police services for the city. I believe that J.C. Cam Ellis was the last constable. These people all had one thing in common. They operated out of the trunks of their cars. And by the way, Ellis Terrace, an apartment building owned by the Area Housing Authority on Temple Avenue, across from the Boys and Girls Club, is named after Constable Cam Ellis. Shortly after the city incorporated in October 1964, the new city leased space from Pleasant Valley School District in what Stan Daly called the only old building left on the site of Pleasant Valley School at 2222 Ventura Boulevard. The whole building had 600 square feet of usable space from which all city services were run, including the police department. They had one room. By 1965, the city's first contract had been established with the Sheriff's Department for police services, and we had a force of 10 deputies. In 1968, most city offices moved into a building at the corner of Palm and Chapel, the former Bank of America building. Planning was in an outbuilding, and the police department remained in the old building at the school. But on July 4th, 1976, this new city hall was opened, and people had moved in, and there was a big open house. At that time, the police department was moved into the former city hall, at the corner of Palm and Chapel. I toured the new city hall that day, and I remember being told that the empty lot next door would someday be a new police station. By the time I got on the city council 10 years later, they knew the department needed more space. Bill Esty was the mayor in 1987. By then, the empty lot next door had been converted into the Performing Arts Pavilion by Councilmember Mike Morgan and his newly formed Camarillo Arts Council. So Mayor Esty appointed a blue ribbon committee to study possible sites for the new station. The committee came back with the wrong answer, the lot next door, which the city already owned. That recommendation stirred many protests from council members. The lot was too small, Carmen Drive was too busy to have police cars zipping out. It'd be too noisy for the homes across the street, as well as for the adjacent LDS church, and so on and so on. So a second committee was appointed to rethink the first committee's recommendation. But before it reported back to the council, we discovered serious financial problems, and all thoughts of a new police station stopped. 1992 was a fairly wet year. We were jolted into reality one morning when the Camarillo Daily News ran a front page picture of Police Chief Ray Abbott sitting at his desk in his office, wearing a yellow raincoat with an umbrella over his head, and buckets catching water streaming down through the ceiling. Shortly after that, Larry Davis, the assistant city manager, brought us a proposal from Frank and Dave White and Craig Mason for the city to buy their building at 3701 East Las Posas Road for about $1 million. My mind was still back at the lot next door, saying that the statements about noise bothering neighbors across the street and nearby churches also applied to this building, and we already owned the lot next door. But the other council members thought the site was a fine idea, so we bought the building in April 1993. Now that could be the end of the story, but it wasn't. I'll tell you about the building itself and what happened next. The construction project was headed up by Larry Davis for the city and Sergeant Steve Lewis for the Sheriff's Department. We worked out an agreement that the city would buy, furnish, and maintain the building and also provide space for deputies who work in the unincorporated area, while the sheriff would provide and maintain the antennas and other communications equipment. No rent would be charged. The building had been financed when it was originally built by a developer named Stu Awry, although the building permit was taken out in 1981 by the Masonic Memorial Foundation, which, by the way, affirmed on the permit that it was the builder-owner, or the owner-builder. At the time, the city, and this is important later, at the time, the city contracted with the County of Ventura for building and safety services. Camarillo Masonic Lodge number 824 held its first meeting in the building on November 4th, 1982, with Mr. Awry promising that he would deed the property over to the lodge. However, the economy took a downturn and Mr. Awry rented it to the Masonic Lodge. Instead of giving them the deed, he mortgaged it to pay for another development. When he died unexpectedly, the building went back to the bank, and the lodge's last meeting there was in August 1984. The building sat empty for a while, but it was eventually bought from Valley Federal Savings and Loan by the Misters White and Mason, who did some alterations before opening it as the Bill Esty Community Center, renting it out for weddings, parties, and community events. It never was profitable, hence the offer to the city. An initial inspection was performed before we bought the building, which estimated that improvements would cost about $1.5 million, bringing our total investment to $2.5 million. We were to pay for relocating the tenants as well as to pay off all the liens. They, in turn, would turn over the building in as-is condition. An LA Times article reports that shortly before we were to close escrow, an additional $100,000 in liens were discovered, but council voted to go ahead and purchase the property at the higher price. That was an omen of things to come. Soon, Mr. Davis returned to the council with a much more in-depth report of the condition of the building, which, you guessed it, showed that it needed much more than the initial inspection had turned up. Excuse me. When wallboard was removed from the upstairs, they found that the upstairs upper levels had not been secured to the first level, so it was really just 2 stories and a mezzanine sitting independently, one on top of the other. As construction proceeded, more was discovered. Sewer pipes had to be redone and resized. Electrical was not adequate for the usage or for the intended communications. It just went on and on. As time went along, costs zoomed, and we issued a COP facility bond for $150,000 in May of 1993. And by the way, COP stands for Certificate of Participation, not for the cops who would be inhabiting the building. The bond document's official statement says that we anticipated receiving construction bids in September 1993 and opening the facility in March 1994. The final tally came to $4.5 million, almost double the estimate, and that didn't include staff time. It also took double the time before moving into the building in May 1995. What caught everybody's attention at the opening of the 28,000 square foot building. Now remember, they started out as one room in a 600-foot building. So now they're up to 28,000 square feet. And they really thought this was a great place. What caught everybody's attention, though, at its open house was a large framed picture in the chief's office of Ray Abbott sitting in a yellow raincoat with an umbrella over his head and buckets catching the rain streaming down from the ceiling in the old station. The cost overruns and time delays might not seem like a big deal now, especially to those of you who were inured by the desalters' delays and cost overruns on steroids, but I was very frustrated. After having learned that we had lost all of our money and an additional $6 million in 1987, we had just gotten even with the world again in 1992, and with no reserves, the expenditures seemed very high to me. While rates pay for water infrastructure and sewage treatment plant upgrades, police stations, like roads, have no income to offset the cost of repaying the bondholders. Additionally, by the time we finished, people in the construction industry were hungry. That economic downturn meant there was very little building going on, and bids for other projects we were involved in came in lower than the engineers' estimates. However, the building has served the people of Camarillo well. Neighbors tell me they feel safer with the police station nearby. It isn't noisy. It is located midway between eastern and western borders of the city on an arterial, and in the end, I think we made a good decision.
Thank you very much. I think we all learned a lot. Hopefully you folks were pleasantly surprised and learned something. So. All right, is there
Next time is Constitution Park
Ooh, okay.
and the war memorials.
All right. Cool. Is there any other business? We finished everything on our agenda? All right, we will adjourn this meeting.
In the memory